Namaskaram. Hi, José. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Today, we're going to ask this question that says, if our actions are driven by two forces, our will and God, and we cannot tell, and nor we need to tell one from the other, can we really be responsible for our actions? What if I try to be swayed by a subha-vasana, and I end up doing some immoral action because God made me do that action in order for me to experience some fruit? Could it be possible that God made me lie, even though that wasn't my intention, just because I was made to do that by God?
Well, the first question, the actions we are responsible for are the actions we do under the sway of our vasanas. In other words, the actions we do according to our will. The actions we're made to do by God, obviously we are not directly responsible for those actions. We are indirectly responsible insofar as God will make us do only those actions that are necessary for us to do in order for us to experience our prarabdha. Since the prarabdha is the fruit of karmas we've done in the past, in a very indirect way, we are responsible for the actions he makes us do. But that is very indirect. That need not really concern us here. The point is, we cannot avoid doing those actions that he makes us do. So we need not be concerned about those actions at all. The only actions we need to be concerned about is those actions we do under the sway of our vasanas. In other words, the actions that we do according to our will. The problem is being swayed by vasanas. If we want to avoid doing any actions under the sway of our vasanas, we need to cling to self-attentiveness and thereby not allow our mind to be swayed by any Vishaya vasanas. So long as we are swayed by Vishaya vasanas, inevitably we will be doing actions. And we are responsible for those actions because we do them under the sway of our vasanas. As you say, our actions are driven by two forces, but that doesn't mean each action is driven either by our will or by God. Many actions that we do are driven by God, but they are also driven by our will because we want to do them. If it's our destiny to experience something and we want to experience that, we will make effort. That is, our vasanas will prompt us to make effort to experience that. So to that extent, the actions are being done under the sway of our vasanas. It just so happens our vasanas are in such cases, our vasanas are prompting us to do the same action that God is anyway making us do. So yes, we are responsible for whether God makes us do an action or not. If we do the action to any extent under the sway of our vasanas, then we are responsible for that. To the extent to which we are swayed by our vasanas, to that extent we are responsible for the resulting actions. What if I try to be swayed by a subha-vasana and I end up doing some immoral action because God made me do that action in order for me to experience some fruit? Well, if God made you do an action, you're obviously not responsible for it, but he made you do it. He would have made you do it in order for you to experience the fruit of actions that you had done in past lives. But for the action he makes you do, he is responsible. But even he is, though we talk about him making us do actions, actually he is not doing anything. He is just being as he is. But by his being as he is, as Bhagavan explained in the 15th paragraph of Nana, by the special nature of his presence, that's by his mere being, he makes us do those things, but are necessary for us to do in order for our prarabdha to unfold. So even God is not doing anything, though in order to express it in our terms, we say as if God is doing something. So if we are swayed by a subha-vasana and we end up doing some action that is not right, because we are made to do that by God, we get the fruit only of the action we do under the sway of our subha-vasana, not the action we do under the sway of his grace, his will. Could it be possible that God made me lie, though that wasn't my intention? Yes, sometimes God can make us do certain actions in order to experience certain results. So even if our action is something that by our normal standards are judged immoral, that action may be one that God made us do in order for us to experience the result of doing that. So it is possible, but generally, God has ordained our prarabdha in such a way that will be most conducive to our spiritual development. In other words, our prarabdha is tailor-made to suit our present level of spiritual development. So if we are following this spiritual path, it's unlikely that God will make us do some major wrong, maybe some minor thing, but not anything major. Not impossible, but it's unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Does this adequately answer your questions, or?
Yes, I think so. I hope this clarifies this thing for this friend. And also, for example, in this case of telling a lie, it could be that, as the question says, maybe I wanted to I tried to be swayed by a subha-vasana. I tried to tell the truth, but somehow the lie came out, and I was made to lie. Yes, it theoretically can happen. Yeah, I mean, in theory. So,
but normally it's more complex than that. We may want to tell the truth, but we may feel that by telling the truth, we are putting another person in danger, or we are putting up someone else in an embarrassing situation. So not for any selfish reason of ours, but just to protect some other person, we may sometimes tell a lie. But all these things, that is, we need not worry. What Bhagavan taught us about the law of karma is not to make us puzzle over these things. It's very simple. Whatever is destined to happen is going to happen. So we cannot change that. So we can forget about prarabdha. Prarabdha will take care of itself. We need not be concerned about anything that we're going to experience in this life because it's already predetermined.
And that includes not worrying about what many people ask about, is drinking a glass of water prarabdha or...
Yes. That is those sort of questions arise only when people fail to understand the purpose of what is being said. Whatever is to be experienced is determined by prarabdha and cannot be changed. That's very simple. So that means that why Bhagavan teaches that, so that we need not concern ourselves about what is going to happen or what is not going to happen. If something is going to happen, and we have to do something in order to facilitate it to happen, we'll be made to do that. So we need not be concerned about anything that is to happen or anything that we think should happen or anything. We can leave all that to Bhagavan. But so whatever actions we need to do in order to experience the prarabdha, we'll be made to do those actions. So we need not be concerned about that. That's God's lookout, not our concern. Our only concern has to be to do with the actions that we do under the sway of our own vasanas. Obviously, so long as we are acting under the sway of our vasanas, we should try as far as possible to do good actions, to avoid harming others, etc. But what Bhagavan wants us to focus on is not the actions. That is, what is it that drives us to do certain action, whether a good action or a bad action? What is it that drives us to do that? It is our vasanas. And whose vasanas are they? They are ego's vasanas. So, so long as we don't allow ourselves to be swayed by our vishaya vasanas, we will be refraining from doing any agamya. But in order to attend to ourselves so keenly that we are never swayed by our vishaya vasanas, we obviously have to have all-consuming love. to hold on to the self-attentiveness in order to know and to be what we actually are. Most of us do not yet have so much love, so we keep on allowing our attention to go outwards, and when it goes outwards, it acts under the sway of its vasanas. But vasanas are only inclinations. Vasanas cannot force us to do anything. So if we act under the sway of Vishaya vasanas, it's only because we allow those Vishaya vasanas to sway us. So if we want to if we want to avoid action, we should avoid being swayed by Vishaya vasanas. It's as simple as that. That's all we need to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's because we don't have that sufficient love that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's the whole problem.
That raises the question that we have to act morally because we know.
Yes. So long as we are the doer of actions, as Bhagavan says in verse 38, if we are the doer of actions, we will have to experience the resulting fruit. So so long as we act under the sway of our vasanas, we will have to experience the resulting fruit. But who is it who is acting under the sway of vasanas? It is ego. So as Bhagavan says in the second sentence of verse 38 of Uludnapadu, when one knows oneself by investigating who is the doer of action, doership will cease and all the three karmas will drop off. Why will doership cease? Doership is the nature of ego. That is, as ego, we identify ourselves with mind, speech, and body. So whatever actions are done by mind, speech, and body are experienced by us as I am doing these actions. So that is, doership is the very nature of ego. And the flip side of doership is experiencership. Because we do actions, we have to experience the resulting fruit. But we shouldn't be so concerned about action. We should understand what is prompting us to do the actions, whether good actions or bad actions. It's our vasanas. So long as we're being prompted by our vasanas, even if we're doing only good actions, which is actually more or less impossible, because firstly, what is a good? I mean, good and bad are very relative terms. But even if we are doing generally what are good actions, it's still a bondage because we're still feeling I am the doer of this action, and consequently we're experiencing the fruit. In order to be free of action and its fruit, we need to not allow ourselves to be swayed by Vishaya vasanas, and we can avoid being swayed by Vishaya vasanas only to the extent to which we cling to self-attentiveness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. I was discussing this topic also with Sanjay,
yes.
our friend, and he said something to the effect that by default we should consider all actions as our actions. If we are going outwards, yes. I mean, we don't know to what extent is an action the sway of our vasanas or that we are made to do by God. Yeah. So since our attention is outwards, we are responsible for our actions, even though it's we do something wrong, or even if that's made to we are made to do that by God, right?
Yeah, but Bhagavan is trying to divert our attention away from concern with action and its fruit, back to who is the doer of action, who is the experiencer of the fruit. That is what we should be investigating. So we shouldn't attach so much importance to this law of karma. It's useful to know the basic principles as taught by Bhagavan, because that will gives us less pretext or less motivation to act in any way. Mm-hmm. Because if we know everything is being taken care of by prarabdha, we can't change anything, then why should we try to change anything? Why should we try to achieve this or to avoid that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's key to understand the teachings very well, Michael, because it's otherwise it can be I mean, for someone who is not on this path, it can very sound, a loose interpretation can be that, oh, so yes, you turn within and you don't concern at all with the actions that you do or something. But it's
if you can turn within and completely refrain from action, that is very good. But how many of us can do that?
Right.
We keep on trying to turn within, but because of our lack of love to hold on to self-attentiveness, and because of our great interest in things other than ourselves, we keep on jumping outwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And vasanas, you said in one video, I think it's, for me, it's more, I don't know, more to see it in that way. The way you explain that vasanas are like inclinations to seek happiness instead of attending to things.
Yes.
To seek happiness in
yes
in other things. Yes. So
yeah. Oh, the motivating force behind all actions is our love, is our seeking happiness. So every vasana is an inclination to look for happiness, but instead of looking for happiness in the right place, the vasanas, the Vishaya vasanas, incline us to look for happiness in the wrong place, namely in objects, in Vishayas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh. And don't you think, Michael, that it takes like it takes a while before starting on this path, kind of understand how everything is joint put together and have a general understanding? And
yes, certainly,
Bhagavan, to know that what Bhagavan's teachings point is that it's start to become evidence, or not just mere words.
Bhagavan's teachings are extremely simple, but they're also very deep and subtle. So for us to really grasp and imbibe them, does take a lot of time. And most importantly, it takes a lot of practice. To the extent to which we put it into practice, to that extent we will understand these things. Because the real clarity doesn't come from their words, it comes from within. And it's with the clarity coming from within, but we are able to interpret and understand the words correctly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
May I add a comment?
Yes, certainly.
Sometimes it feels like some people try to read the teachings in a way that we can at least justify certain actions that we can do as ego. But if we read the teachings correctly, we will know that ego never actually looks good in the whole picture. And ego is always, the ego is a problem and needs to be eradicated. So there will never be an interpretation where ego comes out of it successfully. You know, its nature is to perform actions, and the solution is the goal.
Understanding the sheets, separating the sheets from what ego actually is without the sheets is also very important, because usually the knot is so entangled that we cannot even start to question that ego is something besides the sheets that is there in the shadow, like not existing, but at the same, while our attention is outwards, seeming to exist and causing actions, etc. Right? So, well, I don't know if there is something else we can add to the question. There was one thing that I discussed with Sanjay too. It was the example with you usually, Michael, use the example of a doctor, someone becoming a doctor. And you can become a doctor, and that's your prarabdha.
Yes.
Really, that takes a lot of effort and study and a lot of nights without sleep and so on. So it actually not being your intention to become a doctor, it could happen, but I mean, without you wanting to become a doctor.
In the vast majority of cases, people who become doctors want to become doctors. So their will happens to be coinciding with Bhagavan's will.
Yeah.
But there may be certain circumstances where someone may become a doctor under pressure from their parents who want them to be high achievers or whatever.
Yeah.
So they may not really want to be a doctor. They may not be interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
But just to please their parents, they do it. So it is possible. But in the majority of cases, people who become doctors want to become doctors. So though all the actions they do to become doctor, though those actions are actions they're made to do by God in order for them to experience their prarabdha, they will in most cases also be driven by their own will. But they want to be doctors. They want to get good marks to pass the exams well.
For the money or for whatever reason, yeah?